Prep and Mama here. Today I'm going to show you a few of my favorite preparedness type books. This is just a few. I have quite an extensive library, and not all of it is here at my home because we did an addition on our house a couple years ago, and I still haven't gotten all of my books back into my home library. So I actually have some more specific prepper books that I'd love to share with you, but they are not here. So I'm going to share with you the ones I have here that I have found helpful. Now, of course, a lot of basically the homestead lifestyle is very much the preparedness lifestyle. If you've been prepping for any amount of time, or if you're a homesteader or both, you know this, that they're pretty much one and the same. When you're homesteading, you're making the use as much use as your natural resources around you as possible, and you're managing livestock and your soil and in your gardens and so on and so forth, and you're preserving that for later use. And when you prep, you do the same thing, but maybe not always. You're maybe not growing all of your own things or managing livestock, but you're buying or trading or picking those things, and you're preserving them the best you can, right, for later use. So anyone can live the homestead lifestyle. You can live in New York City and live the homestead lifestyle. It's just a lifestyle. It's not, you don't have to have a land to have that mindset, or to grow some of your own foods, or produce some of your own foods, or have the skills to do certain things like sprouting, or soaking your grains, or grinding your own flour. Those are things you can do anywhere, right? So those are just some homestead-like skills that we can all use, whether we have property or not, and whether we're growing food or managing livestock or any of those things. We can still expand our homesteading skills without having land. We can do that from an apartment, right? I think everyone, if you're a prepper, you agree. There's a lot of different kinds of preppers, and we all do things differently according to what our resources are, and our geographical location, and our personal situation or circumstances. So, and we can all learn from each other that way, but also the same things aren't going to work for all of us. But I'm going to share with you some books that I have found helpful, and I think they should be helpful for most people who are in the prepping community or the homesteading community. They're just basically books that have helped me with certain skills. So I'm going to start with beans. Okay, there's this book. It's called Country Beans, and there's a lot of information in here about the use of beans, and it's not just cooking beans, but also grinding them into flour and using them for baking. So it's pretty comprehensive. It talks about a lot of different kinds of beans. I will try to show you the table of contents. I'll see if it will fit in the screen here. So it talks about making bean patties, quick beans. That's basically you're cracking your beans in a grinder. Maybe not grinding them into flour exactly, but cracking them into smaller pieces so you can cook them more quickly. So cooking cracked beans, instant mashed beans, so how to prepare those things. There's gluten-free baking recipes in here using bean flours. They talk about sprouting dry beans, all kinds of things. So this book is by Rita Bingham. It has been around for quite some time now, and it's called Country Beans, and it is just a comprehensive book on beans. And I find these kinds of books great because they take one subject and they expound on it to the point where you feel confident cooking beans or sprouting beans or doing whatever you need to with beans. Can't seem to film a video today without my daughter yelling for the dog. So that's what you're hearing, and that's what's going to be in the background. Okay, so Country Beans by Rita Bingham. Okay, this I only found out about through Azure Standard because I have a drop, and they at one time sold this book, and I thought, well, that's interesting. I've never heard of it, and I checked it out, and I'm like, well, this is a pretty good book. So I bought it, and the rest is history. Okay, not eating beans right now, but most people have beans in their preps, and these are good skills to have. Okay, so the next one is the New Book of Whole Grains, which actually is not new. This book has been out for quite some time. This book is a comprehensive guide to whole grains. So, you know, if you live in the U.S. especially, you know that we're very, very dependent on wheat here. That's not really the greatest thing. I think we're finding that's not the greatest thing. There are so many more grains out there to learn about and to cook and eat. So this goes through every single one and different ways to prepare them. So this is a really good comprehensive guide, once again, to grains. And since most of us are storing grains, this is a good book to check out. I'm betting this will be at your local library. I would definitely check for this there. So here's the first part of the contents: wheat, oats, rye, triticale. I think that's how you say that one. That is one I haven't tried. Barley, corn, rice, millet, sorghum, quinoa, buckwheat, amaranth, nuts and seeds, dry peas, and beans. So they actually do go through with some things that aren't actually grains in here. So it's just, this is the 1997 edition, I think. So it has been around a long time. Okay, well, it was first published in 1976. So this is the 1997 edition. I'm positive a newer one is out now. And the author is Marlene Ann Bumgarner. And this is how my edition looks. And this is the back. And there's lots of recipes inside. But she gives a nice comprehensive background on each grain. And then she talks about how to prepare it. I mean, look, this is very educational, you guys. So this, if you eat grains, if you store grains, this is good information for you to have. Okay? All right, the next one. This is gardening and food production. So Elliot Coleman, if you're in the food production gardening world, you've probably heard his name. He knows his stuff. And this is the 4-season harvest. So this is a comprehensive, once again, I like comprehensive books because they give me all the information I need from cover to cover. Book on raising organic vegetables 12 months a year. And he talks about how to do it. And I mean, you know, at one point there might be a month of the year where you're just growing greens, but he tells you this is how you have fresh food 12 months a year. And he tells you all about it. And he's got some great stories mixed in there too, and information that I found helpful. He talks about crop rotation, soil aeration, amending minerals, and just all kinds of things. Let me show you the table of contents. This was first published, let's see. Oh, also great illustrations, great black and white drawing illustrations. I really appreciate that. It was first published in 1992, and this is the 1999 version. And he just talks about the different types of gardens you can plan. There's a lot of information on composting, seeds, outdoor gardening, winter gardening, covered gardens with cold frames and greenhouses and high tunnels, and then your underground garden. And he talks about root crops, root cellars, and indoor harvesting. And then he talks about also pest control. And he's got lots of tables also. And it's just a very helpful book if you're interested in producing your own food year-round, no matter the climate. So he talks about how to deal with snow and all of those things. And I'm positive this one is also at your library, so you can check it out before buying, just to make sure it's something that is helpful for you. But it has been helpful for us, and actually this has been on my husband's nightstand for a few months. I think he's reading it. I hope he's reading it. I gave it to him to read. Today, the other books I have are good as well. I just wanted to stop and tell you that normally I'd have the Joel Salatin books out here. They're in a pile somewhere. I think my husband's reading them. And also, someone that I have admired, and I found out she passed away last fall, is Janet Chadwick, and she is the author of several homestead type books. And my very, very favorite homesteading book and preparedness book is called How to Live on Almost Nothing and Have Plenty by Janet Chadwick. And it is a very old book, which is out of print, but I noticed on Amazon you can still get it used. My copy has lost its cover. I've used that so much. So I originally found it at my local library about 18 years ago or so. And at the time, there was half.com. I don't know if you guys remember half.com, but I purchased it from half.com, and I've treasured it since. And I've just learned so much from Janet in that book. And I own 2 of her other books too. One's the No Time to Cook book, which is not necessarily homestead related, but she bulk cooked a lot of things. She had a larger family, and she ran a homestead, and so she did a lot of that type of food prep, kind of like I do. And then the other one, which I recommend everyone get if you are canning or preserving food in any way, is The Busy Person's Guide to Preserving Food. She takes each item, breaks it down into the easiest way first of preserving that food. So she'll take zucchini and she'll talk about, this is the easiest way, but this is the best way. You get the best product this way. And she takes you all the way through it. And it is an excellent guide. And I can't find it, but I'm telling you, I have a lot of books and they're all over my house. So it's in there somewhere. I just couldn't find it for you today. But Janet Chadwick, you want to look her up. The Busy Person's Guide to Preserving Food. I think she has she's the author of a few of the story handbooks too, the story guides. Possibly rabbits. Not sure about that. I think she did at least one of them. I've seen a story guide by her. You're going to want to check her out. All right, so here's another one that I've had for a long time. You can tell because it's dirty. It's Nourishing Traditions, and I've talked about this before when I talked about soaking grains. This is a book by Sally Fallon. She actually has another last name now because she remarried. But this is about, and Mary Enig, sorry, she's the medical person on the end of this book. This book is based on the Weston A. Price work. If you go to westonaprice.org, you can read about him. He was a dentist that traveled the world doing research about tooth health and jaw health and how it's different in different cultures and why. And his research turned up some very interesting information. And so this book is based on his work, and it's basically how to prepare traditional foods. So there's a lot of fermented krauts, fermented beets, just different things. You'll remember I did some lacto-fermented beets. That was one of my first videos for you. So this goes through all of the, basically getting the most nutrition as you can out of your food, how to prepare it that way, and eating traditional foods like sardines and anchovies and different things that we don't tend to as Americans eat today, but they actually are extremely healthy for us. And they're full of omega-3s, which we are not getting enough of in our diets in this country, because I think our omega-6 to 3 ratio is supposed to be like 4 to 1, something like that, and instead we're eating like 24 to 1 in this country, which is not good. So if you don't take omega-3 supplements, you need to do that. That's why you need to take fish oil, people. Anyway, it goes through each section of type of food. And it shows you how to prepare them for the most nutritional bang. So you've got, it talks about why you have to do, why you should do these things, why raw milk is a good idea. It talks about allergies, vitamins, minerals. So the whole introduction part of the book explains the science behind it. And then she goes through the basics. She goes through, it's kind of like a cookbook after that, like recipes for hors d'oeuvres, main course, so on and so forth. The basics, though, are the things that is not normal for a standard American diet that we maybe we've lost this way of preparing food. So I'm just going to read that list for you just to kind of pique your interest. And then this book should be at your library. I checked it out several times before I finally bought it myself. She has other ones out that came after this one. Cultured dairy products, so you're culturing your own, right? Or you're getting raw milk and you're making milk, kefir, and yogurt and things like that, or your own sour cream, right? Fermented vegetables and fruits, so that's your krauts, your pickles, and your other things that are like that. Sprouting your grains, nuts, and seeds before using them, so she talks about that. How to make stocks, and then also about stock-based sauces. So that's what I do. You know, when I make my bone broth, I use that as a base for my sauces, or to drink, because that's good for me too, right? And then she talks about salad dressings, sauces, marinades, and condiments. A lot of those are fermented. She does like a fermented ketchup, fermented salsa, and then there's a whole section about coconut products because they're actually very healthy for you. So she just goes through. Then she goes through meal by meal, and there's a good appendix, but this is a very comprehensive, once again, book on how to prepare foods traditionally. And if you're storing beans and if you're storing grains for prepping, then you need to know that soaking them ahead of time not only reduces your cooking time, but it makes the nutrients in them more bioavailable, because the phytates have been broken down, and phytates are what blocks your absorption of minerals. So this is something you want to check into, and I know you've heard me talk about it before, and I'm saying it again, and you're going to want to check into that, okay? Soaking your beans and grains before cooking and eating, all right? All right, so these two are fairly new to me, but they're good books. The first one is The Modern Herbal Dispensatory, a medicine making guide. Now, I have several books on herbs and growing herbs and stuff like this, but this I really like. It takes each herb, once again, it's comprehensive. They talk about the difference between bitters and extracts and all of those things. And it goes through the basics at first, talks about all of the different things that you can make and what the differences between the different kind of extractions, and then syrups and the different things you can use, and then distillation and drying herbs, and then it gets into the recipes. So I have not used this much. I think I might have used one recipe in here so far. I'm really excited to use more, but they take the herb, then its Latin name, talks about what it's great for, and the best way to use it, and gives you recipes for making tinctures. So if you're into herbalism, this or something like it would be a great book for you to have on hand, as well as an herb identification book. Learning everything you know about herbs could possibly save your life in a grid down situation where we don't have access to medical care or medicine. So this is by Thomas Easley and Stephen Horn. And like I said, I really like this one. I've got a couple different ones like this, but I like the way this one is laid out, and the way a book is organized is important to me. It might not be as important to you, and that's okay. I think any comprehensive guide to using herbs for medicinals can serve you well. All right, and lastly, this one's pretty new, and it actually does remind me of how to live on almost nothing and have plenty, but more of an updated thing. Now, the book is by Deborah Neiman, and the foreword is by Joel Salatin. So if the foreword's by Joel Salatin, it's probably a good book, because if you don't know who he is, you need to look him up. He's an awesome, sustainable farmer in Virginia who is a speaker and a prolific writer, and if you can get a hold of any of his books, you will be glad you did. So this one is just kind of an overview of a whole bunch of different homesteading type skills. And this person, she talks about the things they learned along the way by making mistakes and different things, and I always like that, because I feel like, you know, being real and sharing your mistakes is a great way for other people to learn from your mistakes, and they don't have to make the same costly mistakes you did, right? So anyway, there's a whole section on sustainable gardening, and then cooking from the sustainable garden, the backyard orchard, the backyard poultry flock, for meat and eggs, the home dairy, managing and producing from the home dairy, and there's a whole section on growing pork and what to do with it, homegrown sweeteners, so she talks about maple syrup and honey, and then she talks about home fiber flocks, so using rabbits and goats and sheep and llamas and alpacas for fiber arts, for harvesting the fiber and using that and selling it and so on. And she talks about the care of all the animals too. And then homegrown business. So home business from any of these things. She talks about, you know, how to do it and what's the best way, and what they learned was profitable and not, right? From their experience. So anyway, this is a good book. I like it. I like that it's an overview. But if you can get Janet Chadwick's book on how to live on almost nothing and have plenty, I just really like that book a lot. It might be a little dated, but I just like that how she lays everything out, how she talks about her experience on the farm. They moved out to her farm, I think that was on the Upper East Coast with the kids, but her husband still worked in the city, and she shares all of the experience and all the things she learned and how they produce their food. And I think that this is a very similar story and a very similar handbook that can also be a great add to your library. So that's all I have for you guys today. I have talked on for almost 22 minutes with no stop. So this will be an easy one to edit. I hope these books recommendations were helpful for you today. I have many, many more recommendations. If you have a certain subject that you'd like to hear about, please leave it in the comments. I have an extensive library. Like I said, I'm a bibliophile. I just cannot stop, really, basically. I can't stop with the books. But it's nice to have a library that I can go to, and I really believe in real books. So I have found digital books that I've liked, but there's nothing like holding a book in your hand and taking it with you and just feeling it and touching it. And I'm just a real book person, really, is what it comes down to. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. If you are new here, welcome. I'm Prep and Mama. I talk about all things preparedness from the perspective of a mom of a lot of kids, and we have health issues that we're dealing with and special needs. So I keep on prepping, even though sometimes it feels really challenging and sometimes I'm tired. I just keep doing it. So if you're into preparedness at all, welcome. Or if you just are into, watching a large family who is maybe a little bit crazy sometimes, welcome. And if you're returning, I'm glad you guys are sticking with me, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Prep and Mama out.